Happy New Year! Hello, GenderqueerChat viewers. I am subbing again this week. My name is Christina, and the topic is an awesome topic this week. So is the bonus question. It is like two fantastic things. We're talking about religion, and we're talking about animals, and that's great. I like the topic of talking about religion. So the question is: are you religious or your loved ones religious? Does religion play a role, positive or negative, in your relationship with your gender or other people's relationship to your gender? Okay, yes, I am somewhat religious. I would say that I am Christian and identify with that. I don't really go to church regularly. I don't really read the Bible regularly. I guess I'm kind of more spiritual than religious in practice. But yeah, I'm somewhat religious, and my loved ones are. My friends aren't so much religious. My family is somewhat religious. My dad says that he's Christian as well, identifies with that. So the other question is, does religion play a positive or negative role in relationship to your gender? So I think the way that I see things is in terms of my growing to discover what my gender identity is, to discover that I'm genderqueer. I think it was a smaller leap to go from identifying as a bisexual female to identifying as a genderqueer person. I think was a smaller leap than going from identifying or thinking that I was a straight female to bisexual female. And I think just that the realizing that I was a part of and that I am a part of the LGBT community in and of itself, just that was a process, to say the least. You know, I realized that I was attracted to girls, and that conflicted with things that I was taught, you know, about being Christian growing up. So I was kind of, I kind of went through a period of, well, can I go back to being straight? I went through a period of, can I live a life of, I don't want to say celibacy, but basically, because that's the kind of things that are taught sometimes, depending on what church you're going to, I suppose. That's one of the things. That's what I was taught, was that the acts, that. So anyway, but then we're not talking about gender, I guess. That's sexuality. So, no, but coming to acceptance of not being a straight, cisgender female, coming to terms with my sexuality, it was just a hop, skip, and a jump to identifying as genderqueer. And yeah, because I was already just opened to the LGBT community, and that I had, come to accept that, and just the whole thing. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't that big of a deal. So, in terms of the connection that religion has made with my gender, point being, of course, that the whole thing, that it was difficult to accept my sexuality because of my religion, because of being Christian, being raised Christian. And I still do, like I said, I still do identify as Christian, but learning to reconcile my sexuality with my Christian identity, for lack of a better word. Learning to reconcile that and feeling that, like, that is okay, that was, it wasn't just that, I'm just saying it wasn't a big deal to get from that point to accepting my gender. So, does your religion play a positive or negative impact? Well, it didn't really play an impact. It played, like I said, it played more of an impact on my sexuality. Throughout high school, and figuring that stuff out was just ridiculous. Depending on how you interpret Christianity and the teachings within the Bible and that sort of thing, can make a difference as to whether you see Christianity as being a positive or negative impact on being genderqueer or being any part of the LGBT community. Without getting into too much detail, I've come to believe that I think God loves you, loves me, the way that I am, regardless of my gender or sexuality. And just, I think in terms of my spirituality, I think I have a combination of placing faith in, kind of semi what I've been taught over the years about who God is and that sort of thing. And a combination of that and tons and tons of self-reflection. I trust my self-reflection. I trust that me coming to realize that I am genderqueer is good. That, and that growing up, I was never feminine looking in the slightest. So I think, well, not very much. So I think that it was a hugely positive thing that no one, because I went to Catholic school from grade 1 to 12, so nobody ever told me that the way that I dressed, being a really, quite a tomboy, and, however it is that I acted. If I acted in a sort of masculine way, I don't know if I did. Point being, no one ever said that what I wore or how I acted or anything like that was in conflict with, God's plan or what's right. Nobody ever said that it was wrong. Even with, in grade 8, I started actually wearing boys' clothes. And I mean, they're clothes. Like, how can clothes be wrong? The only issue that I have with is, and it's not, because I'm fully 100% supportive of trans people. See, that's the other thing. Well, there's like, because I was gonna say I'm hesitant to ever transition, but partly because I don't see myself really as male, and I don't really think I'd be comfortable with male pronouns and that sort of thing, or a male name. The other half of that is that medically transitioning would be so permanent that, if on some, extreme doubt, if I am wrong, if God doesn't want, but anyway, it's highly unlikely, because I don't believe that anymore. But, if, just going on a bet, I don't want to make that move. That's another thing. I don't want to, but more importantly, I don't really see myself as male. That's the important part. That's the number one reason why I shouldn't medically transition. That being said, I would be open to, as I've stated in previous videos, I believe, I would be open to a small amount of testosterone. Because I would love to have a little bit of changes, but I'm not comfortable with the voice dropping. Anyways, moving onward. So on the one hand, you can make the argument that it seems as if being transgender is very much a... There's definitely some biological, well, I don't want to say genetic, but there's something, you know, innate about it. And so then, you know, how can you... And same thing with being, you know, bisexual or gay or whatever. You can make the argument that, well, if these people are born with it, then God really does want them to be that way. And then more so of this really interesting thing that I read, because I'm fascinated by the argument of nature versus nurture, of whether, because, you know, hey, if it's nature, then it must be perfectly okay by God because, you know, God created us this way, right? So that's my line of thinking. But something interesting that I read recently was, well, now of course this kind of just applies, I guess, to Christians, or, you know, if you believe in God. If you don't believe in God, then this really, you know, doesn't matter to you, but whatever. Point being, something interesting I thought was interesting that I read was that something about how, you know, God's plan for each person is a combination of nature versus nurture. That just because your environment influences you in certain ways doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad. And even if gender and sexuality is somewhat influenced by the environment. Not saying it is, or it isn't, I have no freaking clue. But if it is somewhat influenced by the environment, someone was writing that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't automatically make it, you know, sin or whatever, or wrong. So, anyway. So, point being, over my time of self-reflection and reading about gender and sexuality and its relationship with Christianity, and I've come to this just a less black and white sort of perception of God and of religion and spirituality and that sort of thing. So, basically, as time has gone on, I think that my religion or spirituality has played a more positive impact in my life with my gender as time has gone on. Because I think one of my, for me personally, I think, I mean, to be spiritual, I think, to have a deeper connection with God, I think you have to, you know, have self-awareness and listen to your intuition and, you know, follow your heart, basically, which just sounds corny as all hell, but that's before anybody, you know, people who don't read the Bible, like, people who, whatever, who don't have access, I mean, most people have access to religion in their surroundings, but you get my point. Like, if you're alone in the woods, how do you connect with God? Well, you connect with your intuition and that sort of thing. So, point being, that's my number one thing, I think, is gaining more and more self-awareness. And part of that self-awareness is realizing that I'm genderqueer. So, I think it's a good thing that I realize that I'm genderqueer, and I think that it gets it strengthens my relationship with God, but that's just me.